Hello, I am Aditya, the host of the channel. Chapter 457, Second Phase Ability Awakening 3. Early the next morning, the sun rose earlier than usual. After more than 2 weeks, the members of the Eagle team finally recovered from their injuries. Seeing that everyone had woken up, Jin Zuyin said, "We will return to the Linen City base after breakfast." Hearing this, Wei Wang asked, "Old Jin, even though your team already cleared most of the zombies in this area, the number of zombies at the border of Linen City is more than you expected." Glancing at the sky, Jin Zuyin replied, "The rain will stop soon. We will return using the military chopper." As soon as he said this, the heavy rain slowly turned into drizzle, and after half an hour, it finally stopped. The members of the Eagle team were surprised when they saw how accurate his prediction was, while the Phantom team members were already used to this. After they finished breakfast, they went to the rooftop of the building, and Zhao Lijai took out the military chopper from her space. 5 minutes later, the military chopper took off and flew toward Linen City. From above, they could see the situation of the city clearly. Besides the zombies, they saw several massive animals and plants engaged in battles, destroying the roads and buildings. Seeing this, Mo Junji's eyes flashed with interest, while Li Kixuan said, "Are those mutant animals and mutant plants?" Hearing this, Jin Zuyin glanced outside the window and replied, "Not all, some are zombie animals." When they heard this, everyone looked outside and noticed that some of the animals' bodies were rotten, while the rest were intact. Those with intact bodies looked similar to the animals before the apocalypse. It was just that their size and some parts of their bodies were bigger and stronger. While the team was on their way back, Zun Qi was having a headache. Standing inside a tent that was used as a temporary infirmary, he looked at the people tied up on the bed and asked, "How are their situations?" Jiang Lixin shook her head and replied, "Not promising. Most of them show signs of mutation, and we can't slow down the process at all." "Is there no other way? How about the healer? Can they remove the virus from the patient's bodies?" Zun Qi asked again. "We have tried this method, but so far, it is not efficient. While we can help them remove some of the virus, we can't heal the damaged organs," she said with a frown. Standing beside her, Chen Ji hesitated for a moment before he said, "When I was breaking through before, I noticed that as long as I had enough energy, I could clear the zombie virus from my body." When they heard this, Jiang Lixin's eyes widened as she asked, "Husband, are you planning to use the crystal cores?" Seeing her husband nodding his head, she said, "The crystal cores are indeed an energy source, but there are impurities contained inside. If we inject a crystal core into their bodies, it might speed up their mutation process instead." "Then do you have another way?" Chen Ji asked. As they were stuck in a dead end, Gu Shaoz suddenly walked into the tent and asked, "What if the crystal core has no impurities? Can we use it?" Hearing this, everyone turned to him, and Zun Qi asked, "Comrade Gu, do you have a way to remove the impurities?" "I don't, but I have some crystal cores without any impurities," Gu Shaoz replied as he placed a backpack on the nearby table. After he unzipped the backpack, he took out a handful of crystal cores and showed them. "These are the crystal cores," he said. Looking at the crystal cores in his hand, Chen Ji and Jiang Lixin's eyes flashed with surprise. They noticed that the crystal cores given by Zhao Lijai had no impurities and could be used, but they didn't want to bring trouble to her, so they didn't take them out. They didn't expect Gu Shaoz to take them out now. Zun Qi was surprised when he saw how clear the crystal cores were. Without even testing the crystal cores, he could see the difference between the crystals he owned and the ones in Gu Shaoz's hand. "Where did you get them?" he asked. "You don't have to worry about the source. I just want to know, can we use these crystals?" Gu Shaoz replied. After a moment of silence, Chen Ji nodded and said, "We can give it a try." Nodding at his words, Gu Shaoz put the crystals back in the backpack and handed them to him while saying, "Use these first. If they are not enough, let me know." "Okay," Chen Ji nodded and quickly went to the nearest patient. With gloved hands, he pried open the patient's mouth and fed a crystal core to him. The moment the crystal entered his mouth, it melted and turned into a surge of energy. Holding the patient's hand, Jiang Lixin used her energy to guide the energy to remove the zombie virus inside the patient's body. Half an hour later, the patient suddenly coughed out a mouthful of black blood. Cough, cough, cough. The moment the black blood touched the ground, it let out a sizzling sound, and the rancid stench in the air thickened. Seeing this, everyone was taken aback. While the man continued vomiting black blood, the progress of his flesh rotting clearly slowed down until it stopped completely. 5 minutes later, Jiang Lixin retracted her energy from the man's body and said, "The zombie virus has been cleared out of his body." Hearing this, everyone was delighted. Even though this method took an hour to treat a patient, at least they finally saw hope to save the ability users. Sun Qi nodded and asked, "How many healers do we have at the moment?" "Currently, we have 7 healing-type ability users and 3 water-type ability users who can heal wounds," Chen Ji replied. "Comrade Jiang, please teach the healers how to proceed with this method," Sun Qi said. "No problem," Jiang Lixin agreed immediately. Afterward, Sun Qi turned to Gu Shaoz and said, "Comrade Gu, I want to exchange all of the purified crystal cores with you at the rate of 2 purified crystal cores for 3 unpurified crystal cores." Gu Shaoz didn't plan to take advantage of the situation and replied, "No need, just give me the same amount." While it was rare for him to be so generous, Sun Qi didn't refuse and said, "Please keep it on tap first. When the zombie horde is done, I will send the crystals as soon as possible." Okay. After reaching an agreement, everyone returned to their own tasks. At the same time, the zombie horde attacking the Linen City base finally showed signs of decreasing. Standing on top of the wall, Wang Qi realized that the speed of the unknown person killing zombies from behind the horde was not any slower than theirs at all. While everyone learned about the news coming from the infirmary and saw the number of zombies decrease steadily, they finally gained hope, and their morale increased several-fold. As the sun rose higher in the sky, a military chopper flew toward the base. "Captain, there are lots of mutant birds blocking our way," Qin Luzi said after checking his map. Hearing this, Jin Zuyin said, "Everyone, get ready for a fight. Old Zhang, you go to the base directly." "Understood," the members replied in unison. A few minutes later, they carried their backpacks and unsheathed their blades. The military chopper flew until they reached the center of the zombie horde before Zhang Yuan opened the doors. The next moment, Jin Zuyin jumped out of the chopper without hesitation, followed by Zhao Lijai and the members. Watching how the members of the Phantom team jumped without even wearing a parachute, the members of the Eagle team were shocked. When the door was closed, Wei Yin said, "Old Zhang, will they be okay?" "Don't worry, we have tried this method before and we can handle it," Zhang Yuan replied calmly as he drove the chopper. As for the Phantom team's members, the moment they leaped out of the chopper, Qin Luzi already used his wind to slow down their falling speed, while Feng Yun created a platform made from a space blade below them. The moment they stepped on the transparent platform, they swung their blades at the birds flying toward them. Crash, crash, crash. In less than 5 minutes, the birds fell to the ground one after another with a loud thud. Crash. When a bird fell to the ground not far from the young woman, she raised her head and said, "Crayon, are they humans?" "Host, besides the mutant birds, there are a total of 18 people fighting in the sky," Crayon replied. "Can you give me their information?" she asked again. "Scanning in process. Energy insufficient. Scanning failed," Crayon said. Hearing this, the young woman let out a sigh and asked, "Crayon, how much energy do we have now?" "Checking the system, energy level 5%. "Only 5%. We have been fighting for days now, and the energy core should be at least hundreds, if not thousands. How can it only add 1% to our energy level?" she asked in disbelief. Hearing this, Crayon went silent for a moment before it said, "Host, the amount of energy contained in the energy core is only equal to 0.5% of an F-rank monster. The energy needed to refill the system's energy to 100% from 4% was at least 250,000 SSS rank monsters. You should know the difference without a detailed explanation," it added. The moment the young woman heard this, her shoulders dropped slightly. Even though she was discouraged, she still didn't slow down her speed in killing the zombies. Crash. With another swing of her two-handed sword, she beheaded a group of zombies surrounding her. The black blood splashed to the ground as one of the rotten heads rolled to her feet. Crack. Lowering her head, she stepped on the rotten head and saw that no crystal was found inside. "These monsters should be below F-rank. They didn't even have an energy core," she said coldly. While she was complaining below, Zhao Lijai felt a strange familiar energy and glanced at the ground. When she saw someone surrounded by zombies, she turned to her fiancé and said, "Brother Yan, I will go help that person." Before Jin Zuyin could reply, she already leaped from the transparent platform and dived into the air. Aitg. She waved her hand, and an ice shield appeared in front of her when she was 200 meters above the ground. Using the force of the wind pushing the shield, she slowed down her speed. When she was 20 meters above the ground, she flipped in the air and created several ice shields as footholds. Stepping on the ice shields, she slowly descended from the air and landed lightly on the ground. Zra! The moment her feet touched the ground, a group of zombies rushed over and lunged at her. Pulling out her dagger, she infused her energy into the weapon. In less than 2 seconds, a giant ice scythe appeared in her hand. Crack crash! With a spin of her body, her scythe beheaded the surrounding zombies in one smooth motion. Standing not far from her, the young woman's eyes flashed with surprise the moment she saw the ice scythe in her hand and the way she fought the zombies. Wash tilde crack. After she killed another group of zombies, the young woman muttered, "Crayon, can you locate Gaia's location now?" Even as a cold, unfeeling system, Crayon was still able to detect a hint of excitement in its host's voice. It activated the system and checked the area of 10 kilometers from their current location. 10 minutes later, it replied, "Host, there is no trace of Gaia within a 10-kilometer radius from our location." Hearing Crayon's words, the young woman frowned and said, "Impossible. Even with cloning, it's impossible to create a perfect duplicate. How can someone from millions of years ago look like my sister?" When Crayon heard this, it replied, "According to the historical record, the chance of the blue planet's residents looking exactly alike, even without blood relation, was 1 in a trillion. While the chance is incredibly low, due to the overlapping DNA sequences of more than 10 billion people before the destruction era, it's not impossible for 2 people to share similar DNA sequences. This phenomenon was called a twin stranger." "Is that so?" the young woman muttered with a deep frown as her tone was thick with doubts. "Yes," Crayon replied firmly. While the Phantom team were killing the mutant birds, when Hanley had already noticed the military chopper flying toward their direction. Seeing the familiar attacks in the distance, he said, "That must be the Phantom team. Inform the commander and the healers." Hearing this, one of the soldiers nodded and ran to the tower. Using the radio, he sent the message. Not long after, the military chopper landed on the military training ground. After the engine was turned off, Zhang Yuan came out of the chopper, followed by the Eagle team. "Vice Captain, you are finally back," Chen Ji said the moment he saw Zhang Yuan. Even though he was no longer registered as a Phantom team member, he was still their member in his heart. Therefore, he didn't change the way he addressed Zhang Yuan and Jin Zuyan. Walking over, Zhang Yuan nodded and asked, "How is the situation in the base? We were delayed due to some matters." "We are running out of weapons and ammo, but we are still able to hold on. It is just that lots of people suddenly catch a cold and get a high fever. We worried that they might turn into zombies and quarantine them in separate areas," Chen Ji replied. Hearing this, Zhang Yuan recalled the situation of the Eagle team's members a few days ago and said, "They might be awakening their abilities." "Vice Captain, did something happen during the mission?" Chen Ji asked when he noticed Zhang Yuan's tone. Nodding his head, Zhang Yuan said, "During our mission, some of our members' abilities mutated. They caught a cold after being drenched in the rain and developed a high fever. At first, we thought that they were only getting ordinary colds, but as ability users, our immune systems are higher than ordinary people, so the chance for us to catch a cold is very low." When we realized this point, the captain checked on their condition and found out that they were entering a mutation. Borrowing the captain's words, it was the second phase of ability awakening. Hearing this, Chen Ji thought for a while before he said, "Vice Captain, if that is the case, then the possibility for ordinary people to survive the awakening process should be higher." Zhang Yuan understood the meaning of his words the moment he heard them and asked, "If the possibility of them surviving is high, why did the number of zombies suddenly increase after the second rain?" "Vice Captain, you mean the reason behind the sudden increase of the zombies is..." Before Chen Ji finished his words, Zhang Yuan nodded and added, "That is why you better drop your plan. The risk is too high." Even though he planned to expose the ordinary people to the rain so they could awaken their abilities, Chen Ji understood that if the risk was high, his plan was not worth it. Seeing that he no longer thought about using the second rain, Zhang Yuan said, "Right now, the most important thing is to check on Wei Wying and his team. They were injured during their missions." Hearing this, Chen Ji nodded and said, "Vice Captain, you can leave this matter to me. After he finished his words, he went to check the Eagle team member's condition with a group of doctors. When he finished with his task, Zhang Yuan went to the east gate where his team was fighting the mutant birds. Boom, booms, boom. Before he even reached the wall, the sound of explosions could be heard clearly. While he rushed over, the situation at the wall was dangerous. Crack, boom. Be careful, it is a level 4 zombie, Wang He shouted as he leaped back, dodging the zombie's attack. Cough, Sergeant Wang, it is a mutated zombie. We could not fight against it, one of the soldiers said after he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Just after he said this, a lightning bolt flew toward his direction at a fast speed. Seeing the incoming attack, the soldier raised his arms to block it, even though he knew that his attempt was futile. When everyone thought that he would definitely be killed by the level 4 zombie, a woman dashed from the side and stood in front of him. Boom! The collision of the lightning bolt and the wood shield created a wave of energy that spread to the surroundings, sending debris and dust flying. The wood shield shattered from the attack, and the woman was sent flying from the explosion force. Before she crashed to the ground, a man rushed over and caught her. Noticing that it failed to kill its prey, the zombie opened its mouth and let out an angry roar. Wife, are you all right? The man asked worriedly. Standing up with his help, the woman wiped the blood at the corner of her lips and said, Husband, I am all right. Be careful, the nearby guard shouted when he saw the zombie rush toward the couple's direction. Crack, boom. The moment he heard this warning, the man held his wife's waist and leaped to the side, barely dodging the attack. Even with his speed, he was still injured. His flesh was burned by the zombie's lightning and left a huge scorched wound, dripping with blood. Before they could regain their composure, the zombie raised its hand, and several lightning balls floated in the air. With a swing of its arm, the lightning balls flew toward the couple at a frightening speed. Booms, 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 boom. The lightning balls exploded upon contact as they hit a sand wall. The collision between the sand wall and the lightning balls created a series of loud sounds as sparks flew everywhere. With a wave of Zhang Yuan's hand, the sand wall turned into a large giant hand that rushed toward the zombie at a fast speed. Seeing the incoming attack, the zombie let out a roar and swung its arms, trying to destroy the giant hand. Unfortunately, before its claws could hit the hand, it was caught by it. As the sand hand tightened its grip, the zombie struggled to free itself while roaring, roar. Zhang Yuan's forehead was covered with cold sweat as his energy continued to pour into the giant hand. Crack, crash. A few minutes later, the sound of bones cracking and flesh tearing could be heard clearly by the surrounding people. Glancing at the people standing stunned on the side, Zhang Yuan gritted his teeth and shouted, What are you waiting for? Kill the zombie while I restrain it. Everyone regained their senses after they heard his words. Knowing that he might not be able to hold on for long, everyone aimed their attacks at the zombie. Boom, booms, boom. After the combined effort of everyone, the level 4 zombie was finally killed. With its head split, the black blood flowed to the giant hand, and it stayed unmoved there. When he was sure that the zombie was killed, Zhang Yuan finally released his energy from the sand hand. The moment he cut off his energy supply, the giant hand turned into sand and scattered with the wind. While Zhang Yuan was catching his breath, the couple walked over and the man said, Thank you for saving us, comrade. Raising his gaze to look at them, Zhang Yuan replied, As members of the base, it is a given for us to help each other in an emergency. The man smiled and said, Comrade, my name is Zai Chanqian and this is my wife, Wan Enning. Zhang Yuan nodded and replied, My name is Zhang Yuan. When everything is settled, we will visit you to thank you personally, Zai Chanqian said. Since the battle was still going on, Zhang Yuan only nodded and walked to the wall. Standing on top of the wall, he could see the battle situation more clearly. Under Wang He and Fu Shenghen's command, while the situation was not as stable as the other 3 gates, it had not reached the point where they were being pressured too much. But with the close combat ability users defending the gate, the situation was intense. Reaching these conclusions, Zhang Yuan leaped from the wall and joined them to defend the gate. With him creating another layer of wall to block the zombies from approaching the gate directly, the pressure on the ability users and guards was reduced by at least 30%. Seeing him coming, one of the guards said, Vice Captain Zhang, you are finally here. Zhang Yuan glanced at him but said nothing. He did not know the guard, but it was not uncommon for people to know him while he had no knowledge about them. "Those who are running out of energy retreat to the base. Let the next group take over," he said calmly. Crack, boom. As he spoke, he punched the zombies rushing at the base with his fist covered with stone. With him taking control of the command, the guards and ability users quickly took turns with the next group. While they had not recovered fully, after taking a rest and having a meal, they recovered most of their energy. Soon, the sound of firearms and skills echoed in the area. When the sun slanted to the west, the Phantom team finally finished clearing all of the mutant birds. Using Feng Yun's space blade, they descended from the sky as they leaped one after another. It took them 20 minutes to reach the ground. As soon as they stepped on the solid ground, Jin Zuyan raised his hand, and a black fire barrier appeared around them instantly. With a wave of his hand, the black fire barrier expanded and engulfed the zombies' corpses on the ground, turning them into piles of ashes. After he cleaned up the area, he retracted the black flame and absorbed his energy. With another wave of his hand, countless fireballs appeared above them. Due to the dense fireballs, the temperature in the area increased rapidly. Seeing this, the members went closer to him. The next moment, the fireballs flew toward the zombies in the distance. Boom, booms, boom. The sound of explosions was heard one after another, followed by the blazing black flame pillar. Standing on the side, Zyro-Kai clicked his tongue and said, "With the captain here, we did not have to work so hard." Just after he finished his words, Jin Zuyan said, "If you have so much free time, why don't you go pick up the crystal cores?" Hearing this, Zyro-Kai let out a sigh and said, "Understood." Seeing him go to collect the crystal cores, the members did not dare to comment, and used this time to take a break and absorb some crystal cores to recover their energy. At the same time, the young woman and Zhao Lijai continued killing the zombies as they got closer and closer to the base's wall. Judging by the situation, they would be able to eliminate all the zombies in another 2 or 3 days. 15 minutes later, Zhao Lijai regrouped with the Phantom team. To make it more convenient for them to take a break, Wen Kai and Wen Mo created a 30-meter-tall metal platform in the middle of the zombie horde. They took turns to rest once every 3 hours. On the 3rd day after they returned, the last zombie was killed, and that marked the end of the zombie horde attack. When the last zombie was killed, the Phantom team finally returned to the base, followed by the young woman. As they walked through the east entrance, the survivors cheered with joy. Some of them even cried in relief, glad that they managed to survive the disaster. I am finally able to have a hot bath and take a long break," Zyro-Kai said as they walked past the 4th ring area. Hearing his words, Shen Jinj frowned deeply as he looked at the black blood staining his clothes. Due to the prolonged battle and limited time, they did not even have time to have a proper rest, let alone time to take a shower and change clothes. But right now, he was actually glad that his body was covered with the black blood. With the rotten stench covering his body, no one would notice the sour smells coming from him. "Everyone can have a week off and have a good rest," Jin Zuyan said. "Captain, I want to visit my aunt. Can I give her some supplies we found during our mission?" Zyro-Kai asked. When he heard this, Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "We will divide 10% of the supplies we found during our mission evenly. The rest will be kept within the team as emergency supplies." The moment the members heard this, their eyes lit up and they said in unison, "Thank you, Captain." Although the supplies being divided were only 10%, with the amount of supplies they brought back this time, the amount was enough to let their families have a good life for a whole year. Those without families already planned to sell their excess supplies in the market. After walking for 10 minutes, they saw several tents built on the roadside. In front of the tent, the guards sat by a long table. Standing across from them were the survivors, forming a long line. Seeing this, Wen Kai walked over and asked, "Comrade, what are you doing?" The guard raised his head and replied, "Comrade, we are doing a census to confirm the survivor's identity." When he heard this, Wen Kai understood that the base was counting the number of casualties during the zombie horde. While this method took time, it was the most efficient method considering their current situation. Not only could they count the casualties, but they could also get the latest information on the survivors. This way, they could decide how to divide the rewards and crystal cores. After all, no one had time to pick up the crystal cores during the battle, and when the battle was concluded, the crystal cores were taken by the guards and submitted to the base. Thinking about the zombies' corpses outside the base, Wen Kai returned to the team and said, "Captain, it's almost the end of the summer. I think we should prepare for the incoming winter." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan understood his intention and said, "Take some members with you when you go collect the zombies' corpses." Understood, Wen Kai nodded. Since the Phantom team was an S-rank mercenary team, they didn't have to join the long line and could report directly to the mission hall. While the members went to get the zombies' corpses, Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai went to the mission hall to submit their missions. Unlike the fourth ring area, the third ring and the second ring area looked completely different, as if the intense battle outside had nothing to do with the people living in this area. The situation was in order and calm. While people walked at a rushed pace, their eyes were bright and full of hope and joy. When they arrived at the mission hall in the second ring area, the hall was empty, with only several people coming and going to take a mission. Checking the watch, it was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Standing at the counter, Zhao Lijai greeted the staff. "Hello, comrade. We are from the Phantom team. We have come to report our mission." The staff member smiled when she heard this and replied politely, "Comrade, welcome back. We heard about your team's contribution during the zombie horde attack." Standing up, the staff bowed to them and added, "I would like to represent the staff members and our families to thank you and your team for your bravery and hard work. Thank you." Facing such a polite gesture, Zhao Lijai felt awkward. After a moment, she could only say, "Comrade, you and your family should thank the commander and the guards. My team didn't help much." Noticing her awkwardness, the staff didn't insist on her thanks and changed the topic. "Comrade, which mission do you want to report on?" "It's the A-grade missions issued by Commander Zun." When the staff heard Zhao Lijai's reply, she nodded and checked her computer. Thanks to the solar panels and generators provided by the Phantom team, the mission hall finally had enough electricity to use computers for checking mission lists and archiving the mercenary team's points and missions. A few minutes later, the staff said, "Comrade, your missions were to get weapons and minerals from the neighboring city. Your rewards will be given depending on the weapons and minerals your team brought back. You can take out the items here." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai hesitated for a moment before she said, "Comrade, I'm afraid that it will be troublesome for you and your colleagues to transport the weapons and minerals later. How about you follow me to the warehouse area, and I take it out there?" While the staff had doubts in her heart, she understood that she couldn't use the other team's performance to judge the Phantom team. After all, their performance was far superior compared to the A-rank mercenary team. Reaching this conclusion, the staff member nodded and said, "Then, let's go to the warehouse area." Before leaving, the staff member informed her supervisor and took a folder to list the items they submitted. Using the car provided by the base, they reached the warehouse area in 15 minutes. When they got out of the car and entered the warehouse, Zhao Lijai was stunned to see the almost empty warehouse. The last time she came, she filled the warehouse to the brim. She didn't expect Zun Qi and his team would consume so many supplies in less than a month. "Comrade, during the battle against the zombie horde, our base provided all food and water, including medicine. Because of the prolonged battle, we consumed most of our supplies. Now that the battle has ended, we will be able to procure more supplies soon," the staff explained. Finding that it was reasonable, Zhao Lijai nodded and said nothing. Compared to the leaders of her base in the previous life, Zun Qi and his men were much more generous and knew how to manage the people. She believed that after this battle, the loyalty of the survivors toward the Linen City base would be more solid and genuine. Everyone yearns for a safe place called home. And with this battle, Zun Qi proved that the Linen City base was worth the survivors' trust and sacrifice. "Comrade, this way please." Zhao Lijai was pulled out of her thoughts by the staff's voice. Following her, they went to another empty warehouse where the weapons were stored. Compared to the warehouse for supplies, this warehouse was more pitiful. Besides several boxes of ammunition and a box of rifles, there was nothing else inside. Standing at the center of the warehouse, Zhao Lijai waved her hand and took out the weapons they collected from the Gu family's weapon factory. It took her 10 minutes to take the weapons and ammunition out of her space, including 15 armored cars, 5 armored trucks, 30 patrolling motorcycles, and 20 heavyweight military choppers. With the addition of the military choppers owned by the base and those brought by the survivors from other bases, the Linen City base now owned a total of 38 military choppers. The staff watched her with widened eyes full of shock. As someone who worked in the mission hall, she came in contact with many space-type ability users. So far, the strongest space-type ability user was only able to take out a pile of supplies before collapsing with headaches. This was the first time she had witnessed someone who could take out so many items and still stand perfectly fine without any trace of exhaustion. Not knowing the shock she caused, Zhao Lijai turned to the staff and asked, "Comrade, where should I place the minerals? We might need a large area too." Glancing at the almost full warehouse, the staff asked, "Comrade, do you need to have a rest first before we continue?" Shaking her head, Zhao Lijai replied, "No need. It's better to finish early so I can go back and take a shower. I smell like a zombie." Hearing this, the staff couldn't help but let out a chuckle and said, "Okay then, we can go to the next warehouse. This way, please." Okay. It took them another 20 minutes to take out the minerals. Unlike the items in her space, Zhao Lijai needed to use more mental energy when she took out the minerals. It was as if the space had a suction force that made it hard for her to take them out. After she took out several large minerals, her back and forehead were already covered in cold sweat. Feeling the faint throbbing pain in her head, she knew that she was reaching her limit and said, "Comrade, we were only able to get this much." The staff stared at the minerals in awe for a while before she regained her composure and said, "Comrade, I can't determine the value of this mineral, so your team might need to wait for a while before we can calculate the points." As Zun Qi had already paid them with crystal cores beforehand, they didn't think too much about receiving the points rewards or not. So Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "Just issue the points to my team's points card directly later." Understood, the staff nodded in agreement. Since they had finished their business, Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai returned to their apartment riding on a bicycle. Meanwhile, the members of the Phantom team were busy compressing the zombies' corpses into several large metal cubes and storing them in Feng Yun's space at the entrance of the base. Standing at the back of the long line, a young woman watched them with interest as she chatted with her system using her thoughts. "Crayon, do you think there is any use for those F-rank monsters' carcasses?" Host, besides using them as material for the lowest grade of fuel, those carcasses have no other usage at all. Nodding in agreement, the young woman continued the chat. Crayon, check the climate and weather of this ancient blue planet. From how they stored those carcasses, we might be facing a winter season soon. The moment the system received her order, a mechanical voice echoed in her mind. Initiating worldwide scanning. 30 minutes later, the mechanical voice echoed again. Scanning process completed. Processing the data. After another 5 minutes, the system finally said, "Host, this is the map of this blue planet and the climate data from the last 3 months." Checking the map and data in her mind, the young woman frowned as she said, "Crayon, the data is too little. We can't narrow down the error rate with only 3 months of data. We need at least 10 years of data." Host, I can only access the data stored in several bases scattered across the whole planet that are connected to the satellite. At this moment, the signal is too weak for me to get any information stored in the ancient relics used by the Earthlings. When she heard this, the young woman could only let the matter go. She couldn't blame the residents of this blue planet for their lack of advanced technology. After all, it was millions of years before her civilization was built. As this thought appeared in her mind, she no longer felt frustrated by the lack of information and read the data. Before she finished reading, she was pulled out of her thoughts by the guard's voice. "Comrade, what's your name? How old are you? Are you a survivor from another base?" Bombarded by the rapid questions, the young woman was stunned. She never had a name, only a code name. But according to the historical records, everyone who was born on the blue planet had a name. If she didn't have one, it would arouse suspicions. Recalling her conversation with her sister on the night before the attack that destroyed their home, she replied, "Dubai. My name is Dubai." The guard nodded and asked again, "Which Du, Bei and Yi?" "It's Du as in restrict, Bei as in bud, and Yi as in leaf." After the guard wrote down her name, he asked, "How old are you? Where are you from?" Calculating from the time she was born until now, she should be around 189 years old based on galactic years. But considering that she was now on the blue planet, she couldn't tell him her real age. So after thinking for a moment, she said, 20 years old. Noticing her slow response, the guard looked at her from head to toe. When he saw her clothes, he shook his head and muttered, "I never expected to meet a cosplayer even in the apocalypse." Hearing his words, Dubai asked her system, "Crayon, what does a cosplayer mean?" After a moment, the system replied, Host, a cosplayer is a person who participates in cosplay, an activity and performance art where they dress up in costumes and fashion accessories to represent a specific fictional character, typically from anime, manga, video games, or other forms of media. Dubai lowered her head to take a look at her clothes and said, "Which part of me looks like someone dressing up as a fictional character?" Host, this question is above my comprehension level, Crayon replied flatly. Thinking that she was having a problem with her mental state, the guard no longer wasted time asking her for detailed information. After filling in her name and age, he casually wrote down the name of a neighboring city on the document. When he was done, the guard gave her a piece of paper and said, "Go to the second ring area and get your identity card at the public management hall." Receiving the paper, Dubai nodded and said, "Thank you." Before she left, she noticed that the guard was injured on his leg. Since he was the first person who helped her on this planet, she took out a small bottle of nutrient solution from her inventory bag. The amount of the nutrient solution in the small bottle was only 20 milliliters, but it was enough to heal the guard's wounds and replenish his lack of nutrients. She placed the small bottle on the table and walked away without looking back. The guard didn't notice the bottle until the next survivor pointed at it and said, "Comrade, the girl just now gave you something." The guard turned his gaze and saw the small glass bottle. Holding the bottle, he muttered, "This looks like a medicine for heat stroke." Due to the intense battle and cleaning up process by burning the zombies' corpses, the temperature had risen sharply despite it raining for more than 20 days. Many of the survivors and guards suffered from heat stroke. Since it was a good intention of the young woman, the guard opened the bottle and drank the liquid in one gulp. Only after he swallowed it did he notice that the bottle didn't contain any heat stroke medicine, but a tasteless jelly-like substance. Thinking that he had swallowed something unknown, he tried to vomit it out. Unexpectedly, in just a few seconds, he realized that he no longer felt pain in his leg, and his body was no longer as weak as before. Even his fatigue and dizziness from hunger and lack of sleep were reduced by half. Reaching these conclusions, he stood up suddenly and turned to the guard beside him. "Comrade, I have something important to report to the higher-ups. Please take over my task for a while." The guard, who was counting the supplies nearby, nodded and said, "Okay." Before he even finished his words, he looked at the guard running away. He turned to his friend and asked, "Isn't his leg injured? How could he run so fast?" "I don't know," his friend shook his head and continued with his work. While Dubai was still finding her way to the public management hall, the guard had already arrived at the guard post. After knocking on the door, he opened it and walked in. Standing in front of a desk, he saluted and said, "Captain Zai, there is an important matter I need to report." Hearing this, Zai raised his gaze from the document in front of him and asked, "What is it?" The guard placed the empty bottle on the desk and said, "Captain, a young woman named Dubai gave me this medicine. At first I thought it was medicine for heat stroke, so I drank it in one gulp, but after I finished it I felt my fatigue lessen, and even my wound healed." After hearing his report, Zai picked up the bottle and took a sniff. There was no smell at all. Then he looked into the bottle and there was nothing left. He placed the bottle down and said, "Since it is medicine and you have finished it all, there is no need to report this matter to the higher-ups." While the guard did not understand why he did not want to report this discovery, he did not dare to go against him and said, "Understood." "Go back to your post," Zai said. The guard gave him a salute and left the guard post. Not long after he left, Gushayos walked out from behind a partition and asked, "Brother Zai, should we check on that woman?" Zai thought for a moment and said, "I recall that you have a member who has an invincibility ability. Send him over to keep an eye on her." Gushayos nodded and glanced at him meaningfully. Then, about the matter we discussed before. Before he finished his words, Zai interrupted him, "You can consider it done." "Good, I will inform you as soon as we have any news about her," Gushayos said as he left the guard tower. Looking at his back, Zai narrowed his eyes before he returned his focus to the documents in front of him. When the sun set on the western horizon, Dubai finally found the public management hall after she took a tour around the base. Except for the central ring area, she had already visited every corner of the rest of the base. "Host, we already have a clear map of this base, except for the central area." Checking the map of the Linen City base in her mind, Dubai nodded. "I will find time to sneak into the central area. As long as you can sneak into their main server, we will be able to access more information about this planet." After she chatted briefly with her system, Dubai walked into the building. Unlike the mission hall that used an office building, the public management hall was located in a 4-story shophouse. As soon as she entered the building, she saw several desks placed at the end of the room, serving as counters. In the middle of the room, there were rows of seats where the visitors could rest. On the side of the room, there was a table where 2 water gallons were placed. The survivors could get some water while waiting for their turns. Dubai observed the situation for a moment before she walked to one of the counters. Since the battle had just finished, everyone was busy with the cleanup, and no one visited the public management hall. Standing in front of the desk, she handed the piece of paper and said, "Hello, I came to get my identity card." Hearing this, the staff raised her head and said, "Please have a seat." After taking the paper, she typed and clicked on the computer for a while before she said, "Comrade, if you want to register as a permanent resident, you have to pay 50 crystal cores. If you do not have crystal cores, you can substitute them with supplies of equal value." The staff handed her a folder while adding, "These are the price lists for the supplies." Dubai knew nothing about the living conditions, situation, and culture of this ancient planet, so she looked at the list and found that she had none of the supplies. "I do not have any of these supplies," she said honestly. When the staff heard this, she nodded and replied, "Then, you can pay using crystal cores." Taking out a piece of crystal core, she placed it on the desk and explained, "This is a crystal core. This item can be found inside a zombie's brain. The higher the zombie's level, the bigger and better the quality of the crystal. You can also find this crystal in the low-level zombie, but the chance of the low-level zombies having a crystal core is only 1 in 1,000. Dubai nodded while her system added the information into the system's data storage. Looking at the crystal, she realized that it was the same thing as the energy core. Feeling relieved that she had money in this unfamiliar place, she let out a silent sigh. Opening her palm, a pile of crystals appeared out of thin air. She placed the crystals on the desk and counted them before she handed them to the staff. Then, she stored the rest of the crystals in her inventory bag. Fortunately, she did not convert all of the crystals into energy for her system. Otherwise, she would not have enough money to survive on this planet. When the staff saw her actions, she smiled and said, "Comrade, it turns out you are a space-type ability user. As an ability user, you only have to pay 30 crystal cores." Even though this policy seemed unfair to ordinary people, this was the best way to pull more ability users to join their base. After all, without advantages, no one would be willing to stay permanently in one place in their current situation. Dubai was trained for battle and not familiar with politics or management tricks, so she only nodded and took back 20 crystal cores. After the staff stored the crystals in a box, she went to the room behind the counters. 10 minutes later, she returned while holding a card and a small book. Placing the card and the book on the desk, she explained, "Comrade, this is your identity card, which also serves as your point card. This is a book recording our base's rules and regulations. You should read it to gain more understanding of how our base operates." Dubai took the items and said, "Understood, thank you." When she walked out of the building, the sky had darkened. Raising her head, she saw the red moon rising slowly and muttered, "Crayon, I never expected that I would be able to stand on the human race's home planet one day. Although the air is bad, the people are interesting." Crayon listened to her but said nothing. Compared to the people living in their civilization, the Earthlings were indeed more complex and interesting. After all, they were born naturally with countless DNA sequences, the result of the mixed DNA from their parents. They were different from its host and her people, who were born in the lab as a result of advanced technology and limited DNA samples from the parents. After a while, Dubai finally checked the map in her mind and went to the area where the new residents stayed. When she arrived, the guards were dividing food, water, and rooms among the new residents. Seeing her walking over, one of the guards waved at her and asked, "Comrade, are you a new resident?" Dubai looked around for a moment before she was sure that the guard was talking to her. She nodded and showed her identity card to the guard. The guard checked her identity card and said, "Since you have already registered as a permanent resident, you can go to the eastern area." In the eastern area, the residents were led to a building with 10 floors in total. Each floor had a total of 20 rooms, and each room was allocated to 10 people. The bathroom and the kitchen were public utilities, shared by everyone. While the conditions were not good, it was better than nothing. After all, they would be able to stay here for free. If they felt uncomfortable, they could spend their money to rent or buy a house or an apartment. Dubai followed the survivors to her room and waited until everyone chose their sleeping place. The room only had 2 long beds made from wood, where 5 people shared a bed. Besides the beds, there were 2 large cabinets where they could store their clothes, but considering that no one could be trusted, the cabinets were used to place items or tools that were shared by everyone. As for their personal belongings, they stored them in their backpacks and hugged them to sleep. When she saw that everyone had already settled down, Dubai walked to the inner side of the bed, located under the window. This place was damp when it rained and hot when it did not rain. Unless they had no other choice, no one would be willing to sleep in this position. Under everyone's gaze, Dubai lay down on her spot without removing her military clothes or boots. Sleeping beside her, a young woman frowned and said, "You smell like a zombie. Can't you get a shower or at least change your clothes first? It's disgusting." As soon as she said this, another woman said, "Comrade, if you find her disgusting, you can move away. She was fighting against the zombies to protect people like you, who could only complain but do nothing. Just let her sleep." When everyone heard this, they realized that those who were defending their base were mostly covered in zombie blood or flesh. After almost 1 month of battle without proper rest, it was normal for them to feel tired and only want to get some sleep. Reaching this conclusion, their gazes turned unfriendly when they stared at the woman who was grumbling. Noticing this, the woman was unhappy, but she could not find words to refute them. With her heart filled with anger, she turned her back to Dubai while saying, "Who knows how many zombies she killed? Maybe she only killed 1 or 2 zombies and pretended as if she killed thousands." Hearing their conversation, Dubai said nothing. At this moment, she was full of amazement. She never expected that a human being could have so many emotions. Just from a short conversation, her system could detect jealousy, anger, disdain, pity, and admiration. If these samples of emotions were sent to the research department, they would be able to create more human cloning. While her thoughts wandered, her body finally succumbed to the tiredness, and soon she drifted into a deep sleep. At the same time, the Phantom team had just finished cleaning up the zombies' corpses at the wall of the east gate. Seeing them taking away the corpses, one of the team leaders under Wen Hanley asked, "Comrade, why are you taking away the corpses?" Hearing this, Zhang Yuan turned to him and replied, "Are we not at the end of the summer season? Although we do not know if we will have a good winter or not, it is better to make some preparations. Since the production lines are no longer working, whenever we use gas, charcoal, or fuel, our reserves will become fewer. The zombie's corpse is hard to burn, but once it is ignited, it can burn for a long time. So we plan to use these corpses to replace the charcoal." When everyone heard his words, they were stunned. No one had ever thought about this problem. Usually, they would pile up the zombies' corpses in one big pit and burn them so they could reduce the virus contamination toward the environment. Thinking back about this, it was indeed as the Phantom team's member said. As long as they were able to find a way to store the corpses without causing contamination, it was not impossible to use them as fuel. With so many zombies in the country, they would not have to worry about running out of fuel during winter, even if they turned on the central heater for the entire winter season. The moment they reached this conclusion, the team leader said, "Thank you for sharing your idea, comrade." Before Zhang Yuan could reply, he had already left in large strides. Seeing this, he only shook his head and returned to his apartment together with his team members. As for the team leader, he went to report to Wen Hanley. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the leaders, guards, and staff members were still busy with the reports and cleaning up. When the team leader arrived at Wen Hanley's office, he knocked and walked in after he received permission. Seeing his subordinate's anxiousness, Wen Hanley thought that something bad had happened and asked, "What is wrong?" After he gave him a salute, the team leader said, "Vice Commander, after I had a chat with the Phantom team's vice captain, I realized that we could follow them by storing the zombies' corpses and using them as fuel during winter." Hearing this, Wen Hanley thought for a moment before he asked, "Do you know how they stored the zombies' corpses?" The team leader nodded and replied, "They compressed the zombies' corpses into a large cube before they sealed them using metal plates. Afterward, they stored the metal cubes in one of their members' spaces." After he heard the team leader's words, Wen Hanley muttered, "To be able to compress the zombies into a large cube, we need either a wind-type ability user or a space-type ability user. Both have to be able to control wind or a spatial space. Vice Commander, if we cannot find the ability users, we can dig up an underground chamber, then cover the wall with metal plates to avoid the virus contaminating the soil or underground water," the team leader suggested. When Hanley thought for a while before he said, "Go inform the team leaders. We will have a meeting tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Understood, the team leader gave him a salute and left. While most of the people were pulling an all-nighter and working overtime, another day had passed. Early the next morning, a group of soldiers were having a meeting at the military barracks. Sitting at the head of the table, when Hanley explained the plan to replace fuel using zombies to them and said, "It is almost autumn now, and it will not be long before winter. Before the weather changes, we have to acquire as many supplies as we can, including fuel, charcoal, and firewood." Vice Commander, after the zombie horde, the number of zombies in the city center should reduce by at least half. I think now is the best opportunity for us to check on the city center and other areas with high populations, one of the captains suggested. Hearing this, another captain added, "Besides prioritizing food, medicine, and fuel, we have to get as many winter clothes as we can." When Hanley nodded at their words and looked at the city map, pointing at the city near Gen Lake, he said, "There is a cotton plantation and factory at Gusu City. If we can secure the materials, it is not impossible for us to prepare winter clothes for everyone." "Vice Commander, it will not be easy for us to get the materials," Wang He said. "Not to mention that we have not yet recovered from the zombie horde attack. At this moment, we cannot spare any guards to go on this mission, as we need to rebuild our damaged wall as soon as possible," Zhou added. After a moment of silence, when Hanley said, "According to the census data we have, there are a total of more than 200 ability users who joined our base during this period. If we cannot handle this mission by ourselves, we can post a mission and recruit a mercenary team to do it." "Vice Commander, the mission to the cotton plantation would be at least an A-rank mission. At this moment, there are not many mercenary teams who meet the requirement to take the mission," Zhou reminded him. "I believe that there will be many people who are unable to join a team. How about we recruit them personally under the base's name? Instead of a reward, they will receive a salary," Wang He asked. "You mean you want to hire them temporarily?" Zhou asked. "Yes," Wang He nodded. When Hanley thought for a moment and said, "This is not a bad idea. I will inform the Public Bureau and Mission Hall about this matter. For now, everyone focuses on digging the underground warehouse and storing the zombies' corpses first." When everyone heard this, they nodded and replied in unison, "Understood." "The meeting is adjourned," when Hanley said and left the meeting room. After he left, the captains and team leaders left one after another. When the meeting room was empty, the window opened suddenly and a breeze blew the curtains. When the sun rose on the horizon, most of the Phantom team members were still sleeping, while Zhao Lijai woke up and went to the water reservoir area. Riding her bike, she looked at the situation in the base and smiled. Compared to her previous life, the situation in Linen City was vastly different now. Even though the fourth wall was damaged, thanks to the good design and materials, and also solid defenses, it did not collapse during the zombie horde attack. When she arrived at the water reservoir area, it was 7 o'clock in the morning. The moment the guards saw her, their eyes lit up. No one knew what level she was, but everyone knew that she was powerful. While the survivors only knew Gu Shao's and Chen Qianfeng as the highest level of water-type ability users in their base, the guards who witnessed her filling up the dam believed that she was at least a level 4 ability user. As she walked over, one of the guards greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Comrade Zhao." "Good morning, comrade. I came to contribute some water," Zhao Lijai nodded at him. Hearing this, the guard nodded and said, "Comrade, it is great that you and your team are finally back. With our limited water-type ability users, we almost consumed all of our water in the past month. If not for Comrade Gu Shao's help, we might have been unable to hold on until now. I am sure that Commander Zun will be able to solve the crisis, even if we did not come back in time," Zhao Lijai replied. After a brief conversation, she went to the area where they stored the water tanks. As soon as she entered the area, she noticed that the number of ability users was at least 10% more than before. Several unfamiliar yet familiar faces were mixed in the group. The moment she saw them, the corner of her lips lifted. With them joining the Linen City base, they would not have to worry about running out of water. After all, these people were a small percentage of ability users who managed to break through to level 4 in her past life. She walked to the end of the area and started filling the water tank. Since everyone was busy with their own tasks, only a few noticed her. They witnessed the Phantom team's strength and the secret information about her. At this moment, they looked at her with interest and scrutiny. After the battle, she realized that she needed to level up faster, or she would not be able to catch up with the pace of the zombies evolving. The only way to solidify her foundation and break through was to drain her energy and refill it again and again. With this thought, she continued filling up the water tank. When her energy was drained, she would sit on the ground and absorb the crystal cores to recover her energy before she continued. While she was busy training and earning points, the members of the Phantom team woke up one after another. Today, the captain would split the points they received from completing 2 A-rank missions and also divide the supplies they had collected. Since the meeting would be held after lunch, some of them decided to stay in their apartments and rest, while the rest went out to visit the market or help repair the fourth wall. At this moment, Zhang Yuan, Qin Luzi, Wen Kai, Wen Mo, and Zhou Huajian were on their way to the base's fourth wall. Driving the car, Zhang Yuan glanced at his friend and asked, "Old Qin, how are your father's injuries?" Hearing this, Qin Luzi replied, "After being treated by Sister Jiang, my father has already recovered." "That is good to hear. Has Zun Qi prepared a job for him?" Zhang Yuan asked again. Before Qin Luzi could reply, Zhou Huajian said, "I heard that Uncle Qin has been invited to teach as a teacher in the school recently built by the base." "Well, Uncle Qin is a university professor. With him teaching the children, it is actually using a hammer to crack a peanut," Wen Kai added with a chuckle. "That is why Zun Qi paid him 50 points every day," Wen Mo said. Qin Luzi smiled and replied, "My father actually does not mind the salary. As long as he has something to do, that is enough. He has been working for his entire life. Asking him to stay at home and do nothing, he would not be able to endure it." Nodding at his words, Zhang Yuan said, "I heard that Zyro Kai's aunt has awakened her ability. Do any of you know about her condition?" "When I visited her with Zyro Kai yesterday, she was still in a coma, but according to Sister Jiang, she should awaken today," Zhou Huajian replied. Zhang Yuan nodded and changed the topic to their plans for the week. As they chatted, they reached the fourth wall. After parking their SUV at the entrance, the members got out and looked around. Compared to yesterday, today's situation was much more orderly. With the guards and ability users cleaning up the zombies' corpses, the ordinary people were able to clean up the rotten flesh and black blood on the ground. Since water was limited, they could only dig up the soil stained with the blood and rotten flesh. While half of the survivors were digging, the rest went to collect sand and dry soil. After they dug out all the rotten flesh and black blood, they would transport them to the open area not far from the base, and the fire-type ability users would burn them. Meanwhile, the survivors would fill the holes with the sand and soil they fetched from other areas. With this coordination, they managed to save water while cleaning up the wall area. Seeing this, Zhang Yuan said, "All right, since we came to help, let us get to work. We still have to go back before lunch." Hearing this, the members nodded and replied in unison, "Understood." Not long after, a large group of ability users and commoners arrived at the fourth wall, led by Wang Qi. They walked to the area where the wall was damaged. Standing under the wall, Wang Qi said, "Everyone, as you all can see, our fourth wall was damaged after the zombie attack. Today our task is to repair the wall and clean it up. The base will provide everyone with lunch and water during the working hours. After the working hours, you will receive 20 points as your daily wage. Those who do well will receive additional wages depending on your work." After a moment of pause, he added, "I hope everyone can work together to build our home." When everyone heard this, they nodded and replied in unison, "We will work hard." While the ordinary people were full of spirit and started working, the ability users still stood there. Seeing this, Wang Qi raised his eyebrows and asked, "Why are none of you starting to work?" "Sergeant Wang, it is not that we do not want to work, but you see, we are ability users. Are you expecting us to agree to being paid the same as those ordinary people?" one of the ability users asked. From his tone, it was clear that he would not work unless he was paid more. Hearing this, Wang Qi glanced at the rest of the ability users and asked, "Does everyone think the same as him?" While no one said a word, from how they exchanged glances with each other, Wang Qi already knew their thoughts. He let out a sigh and thought that it was indeed as the vice commander had said. Due to the awakening of various abilities, a social caste had formed. During the meeting this morning, the vice commander had already reminded them that the ability users might refuse to cooperate if they learned that they would receive equal wages to the commoners. So after he heard those words, Wang Qi nodded and said, "I understand your point, but as I said, you will receive additional wages depending on your contribution." "What if we work harder but do not get any additional pay?" another ability user asked. Comrade, you do not have to worry about this matter. The guards will take note of your work progress, Wang Qi replied with a smile. Before another ability user could add more words, he cut him off. All right, it is not early anymore. Everyone, let us get to work. Following his order, the ability users finally walked to the wall and started working. Those with metal type, earth type, and wood type abilities used their powers to work. As for the other types of ability users, they could only work manually like the commoners. The only differences lay in their stronger bodies and greater stamina. Several hours passed as everyone was busy working. After working non-stop, most of the commoners were already taking a break, while weaker ability users started to feel tired. Meanwhile, Du Bei was carrying a huge boulder in one hand as she leaped to the top of the wall. The moment she landed on top of the wall, she put down the boulder with a loud thud. Due to the heavy weight, the area near her shook for a moment from the impact. As dust and wind rose, Qin Luzi checked the map in his mind and frowned. He had been observing this young woman since the morning and was sure that she was an ability user. But if she was an ability user, then why was the dot representing that woman on his map a white dot instead of a green one? While he was observing her, Du Bei wiped the dust off her palm and heard her system speaking in her mind. Host, a male human has been observing you since morning. Do you want me to eliminate him? Crayon asked. His words and the cold, mechanical voice created a chilling contrast, but for Du Bei, she found her system to be cute. Despite being an emotionless chip, Crayon was worried about her safety. No need, she thought inwardly. Since its host did not allow it to take action against that male human, Crayon could only raise its danger detection level. This way, if that male human suddenly attacked its host, it could react in time and activate the defense system. Ignoring Qin Luzi's gaze, Du Bei continued working diligently. Compared to her training in the military academy, this level of work was nothing. Even without activating her system's power, she would be able to finish her task faster than others. Not to mention that the ancient blue planet's gravitational force was smaller than the gravitational force applied at the military academy, and there were no dangerous monsters that would attack her suddenly. Without any distractions, she could focus on her task. At noon, a group of women led by a guard arrived at the gate. After they got out of the buses, they helped the guards move the food and water from the trucks. The moment the commoners and ability users saw this, they stopped what they were doing and walked over. Everyone, line up to get your lunch, a guard said as he gestured to his team to help keep order. Brother, what is the menu for today's lunch? One of the commoners asked. Everyone will receive 2 pancakes and a bowl of egg drop soup, the guard replied. Hearing this, everyone was surprised, and one of them asked, Comrade, we still have eggs? The guard nodded and replied, Our commander sent several teams to collect more supplies this morning, and they returned with several boxes of egg powder. The commander said that everyone had been working hard over the past month to defend our home, so he decided to share the egg with us and made it into egg drop soup, he added with a grin. When they heard this, everyone cheered and thanked Zun Qi and the guards. While egg powder could not be compared with fresh eggs, it had been a long time since they ate eggs. At this moment, no one would be foolish enough to refuse such a rare dish. Standing at the back of the line, Du Bei watched how everyone devoured their food with smiles. Some even cried while eating. She could not understand the reason they were so moved. Compared to the nutrition solution in her inventory bag and warehouse, these foods could be considered the lowest grade of food. Back in her homeland, even the leader's pet would not eat this kind of food. But thinking about the information her system had gathered, it was understandable for these people to be happy to eat this low-grade food. After all, survival was the most important. While the line moved slowly, the Phantom team sat near the tent and ate their lunch. Noticing that Qin Luzi was staring at a young woman, Zhang Yuan asked, Old Qin, why do you keep staring at that woman? Instead of answering his question, Qin Luzi asked him back, Old Zhang, do you think that woman is an ability user or a commoner? Zhang Yuan had witnessed how Du Bei worked since morning and knew that no matter how strong a commoner was, it was impossible for her to lift a massive boulder with one hand. So he replied firmly, she must be an ability user, perhaps a power-type ability user. Hearing his words, Wen Kai, Wen Mo, and Zhou Huajian nodded in agreement. It was just that they were still unsure. After all, a power-type ability user would show a clear sign on her body. She is not an ability user, Qin Luzi replied. When they heard this, the members were taken aback. They knew that Qin Luzi was able to detect if someone was a commoner or an ability user based on his psychic ability, so they did not doubt his words at all. If she is a commoner, how could she be even stronger than some ability users? Wen Kai asked. Qin Luzi shook his head and replied, I do not know either, but no matter what the reasons are, she is an anomaly and we have to keep an eye on her. After they heard his words, everyone went silent. After a moment, Zhang Yuan said, I will inform Wen Hanli about this matter. Let us finish our lunch and go back for our meeting. Understood, the members replied in unison. 15 minutes later, they packed up their backpacks and returned to their apartments. After taking a shower and changing into a set of clean clothes, they went to Jin Zuyan's condominium. After lunch, Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai had finished counting the supplies they collected during their missions and made a list. The grassland area used by Zhao Lijai to store the supplies had been tidied up. At this moment, the area was filled with shelves that she collected from the supermarket and traditional market. With the shelves, it made it easier for her to search for the supplies. As for the supplies stored in unopened boxes, she placed them in the corner, divided by type. Now with the complete list of supplies on hand, Jin Zuyan could decide how much they would divide amongst the members and how much they would sell to the market. Sitting in the living room, Jin Zuyan asked, Aitg, how much grain and vegetables can your space produce per month? Hearing this, Zhao Lijai replied, the crops planted on the black soil could be harvested once every 5 days, with a yield of 60 kilograms per 1 square meter. According to our current situation, I have adjusted the area of planting. At this moment, the area used to plant rice is 1,500 square meters. Wheat took up an area of 400 square meters. Potato, corn, sweet potato, and barley each took an area of 150 square meters. Soybean took an area of 300 square meters, and the vegetables took an area of 400 square meters. As for the fruits and medicinal plants, I planted them on the grassland. How long does it take for the fruit to mature? Jin Zuyan asked again. Fruits can be harvested once every 3 days, while coffee, chestnut, almond, walnut, and cacao can be harvested once every 10 days, Zhao Lijai said after checking her space's information panel. After a moment of pause, she added, Brother Yan, although the area of my space is huge, the mutated animals reproduce too fast, especially the rabbits and chickens. Should we slaughter some and sell them too? Jin Zuyan thought for a moment before he said, Right now, not many people know about the mutated plants and animals. We should go out to do a mission first. When we return, we will bring some mutated animals and plants back so the base can raise them. Then we will do as you say, Zhao Lijai nodded. Just after they finished their discussion, they heard the doorbell. It was a good thing that they had Li Sikai on their team. With him around, they did not have to worry about having no electricity for daily use. I will open the door, Jin Zuyan said as he stood up from the couch. Zhao Lijai nodded and finished the strawberries before she brought the empty bowl to the kitchen. Standing outside the door, the Phantom team members were chatting when the door was opened. Seeing their captain, they smiled and greeted him, Captain. Come in, Jin Zuyan said and stepped aside to let them in. As the members entered the condominium, they looked around. Compared to their apartment, the condominium was 3 times larger. They thought that their sister-in-law would decorate the condominium nicely, since she collected lots of expensive and beautiful furniture from the shopping mall before. Unexpectedly, there was only basic furniture and nothing else. Due to the large area and lack of furniture, the condominium felt empty. In the living room, there were several sets of couches and 3 dining tables in the dining area. There were also low tables and cabinets used to store items. Besides that, only several shelves were placed in the pantry, which were filled with supplies. After they took a tour of the house, the members sat on the couches and were ready for a meeting. When Zhao Lijai came out of the kitchen, she took a seat beside her fiancé, handed a list of supplies to the members and said, This is the list of supplies stored in my space. Take a look. Hearing this, Zyro Kai took the folder and read the list. After a moment, he said, Sister-in-law, how high is your space? How could you store so much? I never calculated the height, but it should be around 60 or 70 meters high, Zhao Lijai replied casually. After she said this, Fu Guari glanced at him with a meaningful gaze. He knew that this woman was trouble. Not only was she violent, she could even tell a lie without blushing. Captain, this is the list of supplies in my space, Feng Yun said as he placed a folder on the low table. Oh, here is mine, Zyro Kai added and handed over folder. Jin Zuyin took their lists and read them for a while before he said, "Everyone, we will split 10% of the total supplies we have. From now on, we will divide the supplies, crystal cores, and points once a month. You can decide how to manage your items by yourself." "Captain, the number of supplies we receive is more than what we need. Since most of us will sell our excess supply to the market, how about we open a store using our team's name?" Shen Jinj asked. "This is not a bad idea. It is just that with a shop, someone needs to stay behind to handle the shop management. I don't think any of us knows how to do business," Zhang Yuan said. Hearing this, the members exchanged glances. Not to mention that they did not understand how to do business, none of them wanted to stay at the base while the team went out. After a while, Zhao Lijai suggested, "How about we sell our supplies to the base? With the newly built farmland, the base will be able to sell the excess production after 6 months. But right now, the supplies are barely enough for daily wages." The members considered the pros and cons before they nodded in agreement. Seeing that no one was against the suggestion, Jin Zuyin said, "In that case, we should decide how much supplies are needed for a month and then sell the excess. Before, I plan to divide 10% of our supplies, sell 60%, then keep the rest as our backup. But since the amount of supplies is too much, how about we divide 2% of our supplies, keep 8% and sell the rest?" Jin Zuyin asked. According to the list of supplies, the members knew that even with 2%, the supplies would be enough for them and their families to have a full meal for at least 3 months. "Captain, we will follow your decision," Zhang Yuan said. "All right, let's divide the supplies now," Jin Zuyin nodded. To make it easier for them to calculate and divide, Feng Yun and Zyro Kai took all of the supplies out of their spaces. Afterward, Zhao Lijai would store the excess supplies in her space. This would make it easier for her to sell the supplies to the base later. It took them several hours to divide the supplies. When the members left, each of them carried 200 kilograms of rice, 50 kilograms of wheat flour, 50 kilograms of corn flour, 10 kilograms of sweet potato, 10 kilograms of potato, 10 kilograms of vegetables, and 50 chicken eggs. Besides that, they also received 5 kilograms of sugar, half a kilogram of salt, a bottle of soy sauce, 10 liters of oil, and various seasonings totaling a kilogram. For the crystal cores, they divided 30% of the total crystal cores they collected and kept the rest for the team's spending. As for the points, they divided all of the points equally. From the accumulation of the rewards, each member received more than 20,000 points, which was enough for them to spend for a long time. After everyone left, Jin Zuyin and Zhao Lijai went to find Zun Qi to talk about the business deal. Meanwhile, the situation in other areas was not as good as the Linen City base. At this moment, several cars were driving at a fast speed toward the school located in one of the towns in Pingjiang City. "Boss, looks like we can't stay in this place any longer. We should evacuate as soon as possible," a man shouted while he stepped on the pedal. Boom! A fireball flew toward the dogs chasing after the cars and exploded upon contact. A man leaning on the window continued throwing the fireballs at the dogs while shouting back, "Shut up. Do you think we can go far in this current situation?" Stab, stab, stab. "Boss is right, brother. If we stay, at least we still have a safe place. If you left the base, where would you go? Do you even know the situation outside?" a woman asked while firing her nail gun. "The nearby areas have been looted and we are running out of supplies. If we don't leave, we need to expand our base's territory and safe area. But who can build a metal wall like those people?" the man asked frustratedly. When they heard this, both the boss and the woman went silent. Besides their team, there were only 6 teams who were able to go out and collect supplies. The rest of the people staying at their base were either weak, injured, or lazy. If this situation continued, sooner or later, they would rob each other and the situation would be out of control by then. After considering the pros and cons, the boss finally said, "Even if we leave this place, we still have to wait until we are sure about the situation out there." Right after he finished his words, the radio that only let out static sounds suddenly received a signal. "ZZTT Jiangning City, BZZTT, welcome survivors." Boom, booms, boom. The fireballs shot one after another from the boss palm and killed the dogs chasing after them. When they were near the base, they finally managed to chase the dogs away and kill some of them. Seeing the cars coming, the guards standing on the watchtower turned to the guards below and said, "Open the gate, boss is back." As soon as he said this, the gate was pulled open by several guards. The whole gate was made of metal and it was heavy. Even if the guards were ability users, it still needed 2 people to pull one side of the gate. The moment the cars entered the base, the guards quickly closed the gate and locked it with huge metal rods. After the cars stopped, a group of people came out of the cars and one of them said, "Take the supplies to the warehouse and list them." The nearby guards quickly came over to help them move the supplies. After the second rain and zombie horde, lots of the base members died in the battle or turned into zombies. Their supplies were consumed, and they only managed to survive by drinking water produced by the water-type ability users. Seeing that their boss had returned, one of the women walked over and asked, "Boss, when will we get our ration? It has been several days since we received our rations." Hearing this, one of the guards was unhappy and retorted, "You only know how to ask for food. Why don't you go out and look for your own food?" The woman was startled by his loud voice and lowered her head in fear. Her hands covered her stomach instinctively when the guard raised his hand. Noticing this, the boss stopped the guard and asked, "Are you pregnant?" The woman hesitated for a while before she nodded and replied, "It has been 3 months." "Give her some food and water," the boss said. "Understood," the guard nodded. After the boss left, the guard glanced at the woman and spat at her. "If not for the younger generation, we won't bother to keep a useless thing like you at all." When he finished with his words, he turned away and left. The woman clenched her fists tightly while staring at the guard's back with hatred. If not for the baby in her belly, she would never be willing to stay in this damned place. Outside the school area, several dogs were still lurking behind the lush vegetation. Unlike the normal dogs, their flesh was rotten and their eyes were grayish. From their body's condition, one would know that they were zombie dogs. Narrated. The zombie dogs growled as they stared at a pair of siblings, walking on the empty road. "Damn it, I think we are lost," one of them said angrily while checking the map in his hand. "It's a miracle that we didn't end up in the mountain or see with how bad your sense of direction is," the other one replied casually. "Since you think my sense of direction is bad, why don't you lead the way instead?" Cheng Rui asked through gritted teeth. "It's bothersome," Cheng Yue replied nonchalantly. As soon as he said this, a lightning ball shot toward him. Crack, boom. Before the lightning ball hit him, it was blocked by a sand wall. Seeing that his attack failed, Cheng Rui snorted and said, "One day, I will beat you into a pig head." Crunch, crunch, crunch. Ignoring his brother's words, Cheng Yue continued munching on his crackers while saying, "There is a base not far from us. Let's go there and ask for directions." Raising his head from the map, Cheng Rui saw the high metal wall glistening under the sunset and said, "Wow, such a majestic wall. The owner of that place must be a strong metal-type ability user. I wonder who is stronger between that person and me." The moment his words fell, several shadows rushed out from behind the bushes. Growl. Crack, boom, boom, boom. Cheng Rui narrowed his eyes and waved his hand. The next moment, several lightning bolts flew toward the zombie dogs the moment they rushed out and blasted their heads off. Black blood and rotten flesh splashed everywhere, thickening the rancid stench in the air. Growl. Several zombie dogs lunged at Cheng Yue's back with their mouths wide open, showing their sharp canines. Wash tilde boom. Noticing their attacks, he waved his hand, and a blue fireball flew toward the zombie dogs at a fast speed. The moment it hit the zombie dogs, it exploded upon contact, burning them into ashes. In just 2 attacks, the brothers killed a group of zombie dogs. It seems that besides the plants, even animals also mutated, Cheng Rui said with a frown. These are not mutant dogs. Looking at their bodies, they are more similar to zombies, Cheng Yue replied. Hearing this, Cheng Rui squatted beside one of the corpses and noticed parts of the dogs were missing. He went to pick up a stick and used it to poke at the charred dog's head. Not long after, he found a crystal and said, "Well, at least we are still able to get a crystal from them." Cheng Yue nodded in agreement. After killing the zombie dogs, they continued walking toward the school. When the sun fully set and the sky darkened, the 2 of them finally reached the metal wall. Standing under the 3-meter-tall wall, Cheng Rui raised his head and said, "Yue, there are no guards here. Let's go inside." Okay. The next moment, the 2 of them leaped to the top of the wall. Standing on high ground, they saw the situation inside the base clearly. Although the number of people in this base was high, it could be seen that only a small number of them could fight. Shaking his head, Cheng Rui said, With this level of power, this place won't last long. Hearing this, Cheng Yue stared into the distance for a while before he said, that might not be the case. Used to his brother's strange way of conversing, Cheng Rui didn't mind his words much and jumped down from the wall. The two of them walked to the school building. On the track field, countless tents were scattered everywhere. Since they only wanted to ask for directions, they walked to the nearest tent. Standing outside the tent, Cheng Rui knocked on the wooden plate hung on the tent and asked, anyone inside? Soon after, the tent was unzipped, and a man with an unkempt appearance stared at them while asking, who are you? Brother, we are new here and want to ask how to get to Linen City, Cheng Rui said, and showed the map to him. The man glanced at the map and asked, why should I tell you? Knowing that there was no free lunch in this world, Cheng Rui grinned and reached out to grab that man's neck. But before he could strangle the man, Cheng Yue pulled out a sausage from his pocket and said, tell us and this sausage is yours. The moment the man saw the sausage, his eyes lit up. Fearing that they would regret it, he quickly snatched it away and said, just follow the main road. After you see a highway gate, just follow the street sign. Cheng Yue nodded and pulled his brother away. After the two of them left the base, Cheng Rui asked with raised eyebrows, Yue, why did you stop me just now? It's unnecessary to kill that man. If it alerts the guards, it will be troublesome. Cheng Rui knew that his brother was lying about unnecessary killing, but he didn't care about his reason at all. Now that they already knew where to go, they chose an abandoned car and drove to the highway. While the two of them traveled under the red moon, Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai were drinking instant coffee inside Sun Qi's office. Sitting across from them, Sun Qi took a gulp of his coffee before he asked, what brings the two of you here so late? Placing the cup on the table, Zhao Lijai took out the supply list from her space and handed it to him. This is the list of supplies that my team currently has. We came to see if the base is interested in buying. The moment she said this, Sun Qi opened the folder and read the list. After a while he asked, how do you plan to sell it? Hearing Sun Qi's question, Jin Zuyan replied, my team will sell them for 90% of the price listed in the base's supply and marketing store. Sun Qi raised his eyebrows. The price of the supplies sold in the base's store was not high but not low either. He calculated for a moment and knew that while the base only earned 10%, they saved time and manpower. This was not a bad deal. The amount of supplies is too much. At this moment, we don't have enough crystal cores to buy everything. Our base is only able to buy at most 70% of the total amount, Sun Qi said. No problem, Jin Zuyan nodded. Jin Zuyan, do you plan to sell the rest of the supplies to another place? Sun Qi asked. For now, we do not have that plan, but we might go visit other places to check the situation and sell the supplies along the way, Jin Zuyan said. Nodding at his words, Sun Qi said, we received a lot of requests from other places near Linen City from the radio contact. It seems that the situation out there is more dangerous after the second rain. Regarding this matter, my team will go out to scout the situation. We plan to visit the national park in Sanchu City, so it might take us a while to return, Jin Zuyan said after a moment of silence. Just after he finished his words, they heard a knock on the door. Come in, Sun Qi said. Soon after, the door was opened and Chen Kaingseo entered the room, holding a folder. Noticing Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai, he smiled and greeted them. Zuyan, sister-in-law, both of you are here. Brother Chen, the two of them nodded at him. Captain Chen, what brings you here at this time? Sun Qi asked. Although this man was an officer in the capital, he did not involve himself with the Linen City base's matters since he arrived. It was rare to see him coming for a visit. Chen Kaingseo took a seat and handed the folder to him while saying, you might want to read this first. Raising his eyebrows, Sun Qi took the folder and read the document. After a moment, he frowned and asked, where did you get this information from? My team has been contacting several of our comrades after we left the capital. After the zombie attack, we contacted them again, but out of 68 people, only 31 responded to our call. This information was sent back by them, Chen Kaingseo replied. When he heard this, Jin Zuyan asked, Brother Chen, is it about the plant and animal attack? How did you know? Sun Qi asked with surprise. Zuyan, you are really well informed. It is indeed about the emergence of plants and animals, Chen Kaingseo said with a smile. From the information we gathered recently, the plants mutated and attacked not only humans but also zombies, but there was no zombie virus found in the plants and they were edible. As for the animals, some of them changed in their appearance and were infected with the zombie virus. Besides these animals, some of the animals also mutated, but there was no zombie virus found in their bodies. To differentiate the animals, we called the infected zombie animals and the edible ones mutant animals. My team was attacked by a mutant snake when they went out this morning. It took us a few hours to kill it. I wonder if you want to check it, he added while looking at Zun Qi. Zun Qi's eyes lit up at his words. If the mutant snake's meat was safe for consumption, it could solve their urgent need for meat. Sure. While they were on their way, a large group of people had gathered around the public center, located at the third ring. The public center was only 200 meters away from the marketplace, so when Chen Kaixiao's team dragged a massive snake with their cars, a lot of people saw this and came to check the situation. Judging by the appearance of the snake, it should be a non-venomous rat snake, but the size of this snake was several folds bigger than the common rat snake. From the rough estimation, the diameter was at least 60 to 80 centimeters, and the length was around 15 meters. When everyone saw the sharp, long canines on the snake's mouth, a chill ran down their spine. If this snake was really a rat snake, then the situation outside the base was far more dangerous than they thought. Amidst the hushed discussions of the survivors, a car arrived soon after. As soon as the engine was turned off, Zun Qi came out of the car, followed by Wen Hanli, Chen Kaixiao, Jin Zuyan, and Zhao Lijai. The moment the team members saw their captain, their eyes lit up. One of them walked over and said, "Captain, we brought the snake here according to your command." Chen Kaixiao nodded and said, "Well done." Turning to Zun Qi, he pointed at the snake and asked, "Commander Zun, what do you think?" Zun Qi and Wen Hanli exchanged glances before the two of them walked closer. Reaching out, they touched the snake's scales and sharp canines. After a while, Wen Hanli said, "Commander, this is a non-venomous rat snake. Although there are no signs of zombification, we still have to run a test first to make sure that it is safe for consumption." "Captain Chen, how do you plan to sell this snake?" Zun Qi asked. "We will sell this snake per part. As you can see, every part of this snake is valuable. The scales can be made into armor, the canines can be made into weapons. As for the venom, fat, meat, blood, and bones, they could be used as medicine," Chen Kaixiao said. "We are just wondering how much the base is willing to pay," he added with a smile. Chapter 473, Mutant Snake 3. After thinking for a moment, Wen Hanli replied, "Although the snake is valuable, it is not rare. We will buy the whole snake for 800 crystal cores." Hearing this, Chen Kaixiao's team members frowned. It took them a lot of effort to kill this snake, and some of them were injured, so they hoped for a higher price. "Vice Commander Wen, don't you think your price is too low? Look at the size of this snake. Just its meat alone could weigh at least several hundred kilograms," Chen Kaixiao said while shaking his head. "So how much do you want?" Wen Hanli asked. 1,500. 900. 1,500. 1,000. The two of them went back and forth several times before they finally reached an agreement. The snake was sold for 1,350 crystal cores. Standing on the side, Zhao Lijai rubbed her chin and muttered to herself, "This is a lucrative business." Hearing her words, Jin Zuyan let out a chuckle and said, "Brother Chen is able to sell it at a high price because this is the first mutant animal. Over time, people will discover more, and with the supply meeting the demand, the price will get lower in the future." "If that is the case, then why is mutant meat so expensive in our past life?" she asked in a whisper. Leaning down, Jin Zuyan whispered softly in her ear, "That is because some people monopolize the market and increase the price. Not all mutant animals are expensive." Zhao Lijai felt his breath and distanced herself to stare at him. From what she knew, the one who was controlling the market of mutant animals and mutant plants was the Sanchu City base, which was under his control. So was it him who controlled the price? After the snake was bought by the base, the news about the emergence of mutant animals, mutant plants, and zombie animals spread to the entire base in less than 2 hours. The researchers took a sample from the mutant snake and conducted a test for the whole night before the result came out early the next morning. Before dawn, the test result was announced, and the snake meat was sent to the cafeteria. When the survivors entered the cafeteria, they smelled the fragrance of sweet and sour meatballs. Thinking that they were hallucinating from craving meat for a long time, the survivors went to the counter with doubts. Unexpectedly, when they reached the counter, they saw a huge basin filled with sweet and sour lion head dishes. Besides that, there was also a huge pot of milky white snake soup. The moment they saw this, one of them shouted, "Comrade, give me a portion of meatballs and a portion of snake soup. Also 2 coarse grain steamed buns." Hearing this, the rest of the people were unwilling to be left behind. Fearing that they would not get any, they pushed and shoved the surrounding people. In less than 5 minutes, the situation escalated. Noticing this, the staff quickly informed the guards. 5 minutes later, a group of guards came over and took control of the situation with force. Due to this, the news of the meat dish spread faster than the wind. When Gu Shaoz and his team arrived in the cafeteria, they were shocked to see that the building was fully packed. Standing outside, they stared at the crowd with astonishment. "Brother, are we going in?" Zheng Changchou asked. "With so many people inside, it is impossible for us to go inside. Let us go to the market and see if we can buy something for breakfast." Gu Shaoz shook his head. The children's eyes lit up when they heard this and replied in unison, "Okay." Meanwhile, in the marketplace, Shen Jinyu was busy flipping the scallion pancakes on the hot pan. At the same time, her mother was selling the pancakes with a smile on her wrinkled face. With the point machine given by Shen Jinj, the transaction was quick and convenient. In less than a few minutes, she sold more than 10 pancakes already. "Comrade, please give us 15 scallion pancakes." "Thank you," Rongmo said. "Okay," Mother Shen nodded and quickly packed the pancakes using oil paper. She handed the package to her and said, 7 points for a pancake, so a total of 105 points. You can scan the points directly." Rongmo took the package, took out her card and scanned it on the machine. With a beep, the payment was done. After buying their breakfast, Gu Shaoz and his team did not leave and sat on the benches beside the stall. "Brother, this pancake is more delicious than the one sold in the cafeteria," Fu Lijian exclaimed after taking a bite. Compared to the dry and tasteless pancakes in the cafeteria, this scallion pancake was fragrant. There was a nutty flavor, and the amount of scallion was generous. While she pan-fried the pancakes, Shen Jinyu heard this and said, "Of course my family's pancakes are more delicious. After all, we use peanut oil and add lots of scallion. We also use white flour." Hearing her words, one of the customers nodded and replied, "It is indeed delicious, but it is too expensive. I only earn 15 points daily. It is only enough to buy 2 pancakes." Mother Shen chuckled at his words and said, "Comrade, it is not that we do not want to lower the price, but you know that peanut oil is not cheap. Even if you have money, it is not a guarantee that there will be stock in the supply and marketing store." "Auntie, can your family make other things for sale?" another customer asked. "For us commoners, as long as the food is filling and cheap, it is okay if the taste is average," a man added. Shen Jinyu thought about the supplies given by her brother and said, "Well, we might be able to make some steamed corn buns, but we do not know if people want to buy them. After all, compared to scallion pancakes, the taste is more average." "Sister, how do you plan to sell the steamed corn buns?" a woman asked. Thanks for watching. Please sub and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story.